here today. We have from the town board Supervisor Warren Lucas, Deputy Supervisor Peter Kamenstein. I know he's here somewhere. There's Peter. Thank you. Brent is here. Brent Golisano, and Catherine Daniels is out of town. So welcome everybody. And if you haven't signed in, please do so on the way out. So what is our job? The town has a master plan. It's up on our website. It's a 10-year plan of how everyone envisions the town of North Salem. But this one is just for Croton Falls, which is so special, right? We are going to define the issues that are here in this part of town. We're going to envision the improvements, and we're going to solicit your input again and again and again, because that's what it's all about. If I see people sitting on the planning board telling you what your community is going to look like, we want you to tell us how you feel your community should grow or not grow or be improved. We're going to create a 10-year vision with your help, and we're also going to try to create a capital plan, because some of the things we talk about today are going to cost some money. The good news is we have a fantastic town board who knows how to find grant money, and they do. So to the best extent possible, they keep the costs down and they keep the improvements coming. And at the end of the day, the capital plan is also something that we will turn over to the town board as a recommendation for them to look at. At the same time, I believe Catherine Daniels, working with Warren, is going to be creating a capital plan for the town. So we're all going to be working together and get everything to mesh. And here we go. So first of all, how do we define Croton Falls? For the purpose of what we're doing, next, Ed. Croton Falls is all of the land west of 684. At the north, we're bordered by Putnam. On the east, 684. On the west, the town of Somers. And the south, we've included the site just behind Primavera. Within that area, there's basically 3 neighborhoods. And we're kind of separate because you can't easily walk from one to the other. A is identified as Yanksville. There's 25 homes up there. The B area is, I call Harvey Birch Hill. There's 64 homes there. And I made an error. There's actually 2 existing commercial properties. Vanzo has his knife sharpening, and Ken Lippman has his old fire department building new offices there. And there are 2 churches in that area. C is the Sun Valley, and I included all the vacant land going up, and there's 41 homes there. The actual hamlet area, the brown area D, there are 8 homes there and 13 commercial properties. Along 22, there's, in the area called E, there's 3 residents there and 5 commercial properties, and in F, there's 1 resident and 2 commercial properties. That area pretty much follows the zoning. Next. All of the zoning and the businesses match up. This is what we've been carrying through over the years. It's been looked at and considered changes over the years, and each time the residents had said no thank you. So it's pretty much the way it is and the way it can grow and improve. Just for the fun, next slide, and I think he's gonna whiz through these, and I have them up over there. The history of Croton Falls is kind of fun. I mean, it used to be a really big buzzing place in that if you look at the commuter parking lot and envision large buildings there, and as you go back to the river, there were factories there straddling. In 1847, the railroad came up and really made it a hub and a center. People would come up from the city and take their horse and buggies and go to Lake Mayapack or Peach Lake. When the city started condemning land at the last turn of the century and started building their reservoirs, they started condemning the land right up to the wall of what's Croton Creek and the auto repair shop. So they actually own the land under the parking lot, and they even own the side yard to Croton Creek. There's the old dirt road to Primavera. So the history is fun. The history gives us a sense of the character of the community and how much of that has been maintained over the years and how much of it has changed. And we always pay attention to that. let's go to the next, the aerial. So the three neighborhoods have as a backyard quite a bit of vacant land. And actually that vacant land could be developed one day. So if it is ever developed, and I think it was zoned as R1, that could drastically change the character of our community. More people would come down and shop and whatever. But for the moment, it is vacant land. And all the city land gives us a nice buffer. That will never be developed. And it kind of separates us from Route 202. And as I'm going to talk about in a minute, one of the major travel routes that helps define what we are. Next, please. Okay, so I just mentioned Route 202. Route 202 plays an important role in defining who we are and what we can and can't do. I think, as most of you know, it is a major funneling of cars right through our community to head south to work, to get to 684. A few break off and go down 202, but if you live along 22, you know the traffic in the morning and the traffic in the evening, it is constant. It influences what happens at our intersections. It influences whether or not we can actually have a safe walking community. And that's one thing I know that some people have been talking about and already communicating with us about. Next, please. The hub is really because of the railroad station, the stop there, the post office, and this 2-block business area, which to this day has still survived with strong businesses, and we hope to get them back strong and filled. You can see the depot, the old depot, and the new park. And we have another image from the opposite direction of the center. This is 2002. And the next image, please. Okay, 22, and one of the reasons why you don't see too many businesses along 22 is, unlike other centers, you can't really park along the edge of the road. And if you could find an area you could park, you'd probably be in the living room of the house right there. You probably wouldn't be able to have a sidewalk. And if you opened your car door, you would have it right out in the face of oncoming traffic. So it is kind of a limiting force for expansion of parking, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue to make it a walkable community by looking at sidewalks. And if we have sidewalks, I know some people have already raised the question about how to safely cross our roads. So that's another thing that we will be looking at. Next. So, what has the town board been doing? An awful lot for Croton Falls. You have to thank Warren and the town board and some of the previous members. They've already gone through and worked with NYSEG and changed out the lights on the poles on the streets. And more recently, they've gone through Croton Falls and changed out the lights on the poles, making them more dark sky compliant, bringing the lighting down. And they did a terrific job of picking them out. They had the help of our CAC, and those have been changed out. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. They've purchased the old train depot, and initially there was a thinking that, we don't have a rec center, we don't have a senior center. Is there any possibility that this building can be saved, can be used? If nothing else, there's parking there, and they've got the new park. So they actually had a professional consultant come in and look at the building so we could understand the historical integrity of it and what the potential might be. But in the middle of doing all of that, next slide, that's the same view, next one. The old Marriott site behind Primavera, that was another piece of property that, is this something we should be looking at and considering? Would it help Croton Falls in any way? Well, in a minute you're going to hear Warren Lucas talk about a potential sewer district. Maybe we need that land for that, or maybe we could use that land to swap out with land that the city owns in the center, and that can we get back? No, we'll go here. Back in the center of town, we all go to the town clerk to get our parking tickets here, and all the money goes to the town clerk, but it all doesn't stay there. We have to give 1/3 of that revenue to the city. So if the town could own that, and maybe the city owned that, within a short period of time, you'd make back what it cost to buy that. So that was another smart move on our town board's part. The next slide, please. The schoolhouse. The schoolhouse came up for sale. I know people were interested in it. I think the people who were using the schoolhouse were also interested, but the town board said, you know, if we're going to improve the old building and put money into that, the depot, where it's limited space, limited parking, what if we focused on this building and put the money there? And they did. That building is much bigger, it's got a lot more potential, it's got a parking lot. So we've got a lot of things in the works. And the one thing, actually, the next slide, please, I think. Next one, I'm gonna skip over that. Okay. One thing I skipped over was the little park area. Now the depot is that hatched area in the back that we just saw. And right now, the town board is working on extending the sidewalks across the back and bringing them around the gazebo in the front. And all of this, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but again, you got a town board that knows how to find money, especially Warren. And he can tell you how much money he's been bringing home from different levels, county level, state level, federal level. He keeps his eye on the grants, and that has really, really helped us. The one thing I didn't mention about 22 is we hardly see any bicycles. And thank goodness we don't, because imagine bicycles on Route 22. But it could be a walkable community if it can't be a biking community. Infrastructure. Let's jump to our water district. So in the 3 communities in my neighborhood, half the people are on their own individual wells and half the people are on a private public system. In the Sunset area, everybody's on their own individual well and septic, but in this area, with the exception of a few homes over here, the majority of them are in the Croton Falls Water District. That's a very old district that was turned over to the town. When we did the improvements to the business area back in the early 90s, we took care of all the pipes underground there and improved them. Even the line that went under, Penn Central actually owns the land that the MTA, the Metro North is over. We replaced the pipe going under there. And then we looked at the rest of it and said, we need to do something about all of the pipes in this water district. The project was broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 being all the residents up the hill, and phase 2 being everything along Route 22. There was an opportunity to move improve the sidewalks on the west side of 22, going from Tommy DePauli's house to the church. So that was done, and the water line was taken care of there. And going the other way on 22, the water line was done and taken care of there. But unfortunately, on the east side of 22, the water line to those homes were never done as part of phase 2. So that has to be kept on the capital improvement list to figure out when that can happen. The other thing going on with this water district are the wells. As you all know in the district, your well water is tested constantly. And when it was discovered that there's radiologicals in the well, search went on to find new wells. You've ended up with wells being drilled along the river. This is 22 and the few homes there where they stop. You have wells there, but they're shallow wells. So everyone has to be very careful and pay attention to what's happening and what could influence a shallow well. One with one backup, but they're like the same. So I know Warren is talking about looking for another well for Croton Falls. So a lot needs to be done to finish the job for Croton Falls, which leads us up to a proposed sewer district. I think you've all heard that the businesses in that 2-block area, there's no place for them to go. They're constantly pumping out. We know they need a solution. The question is it just them or is it more that should be considered? This is the kind of conversation I think that the town board wants to have with you about the sizing of a sewer district. What the planning board is going to do is we're going to visit all of the options available, look at the feasibility, look at the cost, see which 1 or 2 options rise to the top, keep working with the town board until they figure out how big to size it and look at the pricing of it, and then we could keep working on that capital plan and hand it over. So I'm going to ask Warren to come up because he is so familiar with the background on designing, and this is very preliminary. This is like something that Warren put in place because he wanted to get out there and start the conversation about what kind of grants and money can he bring home to have that take place. Thank you, Warren.
It's great having the head of the planning board in Croton Falls because she obviously, for all her pictures that she enlarged, obviously very dedicated to the community. This has been held up a couple of years with COVID, actually, probably about 1.5 years. We anticipated starting, we talked about this in 2019, say, okay, we're going to get going in the spring of 2020, and kind of here we are. Cynthia mentioned a bunch of things, and you know, one of the things that we had originally anticipated was some type of central sewer system, central septic system for some of the businesses, at a minimum. I have people pumping out constantly. I see all the records, so I know that we have businesses pumping out, 10, 15 times a year. And so the cost for them to do that is excessive. Plus, I have businesses I've talked to in the little hamlet there that they close on Sunday because they can't, their septic systems have to rest. That whole area is all sand, so a lot of it disappears unless you get a little grease or something in between the sand, and then you have a serious problem again. And some of those things have had to been mitigated over the years. We've spent a lot of time, if I go back probably 15 years, on Peach Lake area in town. And we did the sewers over there. It was a fair amount of heavy lifting to get a lot of that done. We've had a lot of lake quality issues that we've worked on, a lot of grants that have come in. I think the sewer district between, the North Sound portion of the sewer district was $23 million. And we ended up with a $5 million bond when it was all said and done. Everything else was grants. There's about 500 homes over there. A little bit different, completely different from here, but we're somewhat familiar with the process, at least I am at this point in time, and the rest of the board obviously also. When we were looking at Croton Falls, the first thing that we realized, there's not a lot of land around, right? Everything is owned by the DEP, and it used to be called the City Waterworks, but when they were putting the reservoirs in 1890s, 1880s, 1890s, as Cynthia said, they condemned right up, not to the sidewalks, in some cases they condemned, the building, the garage building in the back there, right up to the wall of the building. In fact, when they were at the planning board trying to put an air conditioning unit out, hanging off the outside, it was on DEP property. That's how close it was. If you look around Croton Falls, a lot of the pieces of property are all DEP property. And so there's not a lot of places to put a sewer plant. We did talk to the DEP, maybe we can do some subsurface stuff under the parking lot. I talked to Ed Kelly about this piece of property behind Primavera. There's 12 acres, about 5 acres of it is in pretty good, it's reasonable property, although I don't know exactly how far down to the water level it is, but it could handle something. And I had the engineers look at it. I also went over and talked to Somers, and Heritage Hills has sufficient capacity. One of the nice things about Croton Falls is we don't have a lot of sewage. What we're looking at, it's maybe 15,000 gallons is all. So it's not something that requires a huge plant, nor do I really want to have a plant in town. So we went over and talked to Heritage, and originally, because the transportation law and the way it was filed in the state of New York, they could control who came in and who could not. And the way it was set up, the town board had the option, but they kept Putnam County out. Putnam County wanted to come in there with about 1,000 condominium units, and so they said, no, Putnam County, you can't come in. At that point, it was impossible for them to let another municipality in when they told another municipal entity they couldn't. And they said, if you want, you can go up to the state of New York, you can redo the transportation law, and we'll help you with that, but you have to pay for it. And of course, that was, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Turns out Zeus bought the heritage plant, and because I've been talking to the town of Somers, when the transportation law, when they filed under the transportation law, it was redone so that they can let people from Westchester into the plant. And in fact, I met with Supervisor Morrissey not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, just to say, hey, we're still looking at this, and he says, you're fine. I'd like you to go this way as opposed to this way, but you can pump over to us. The nice thing about that is what you need to do this is gravity sewers to some place, and you need some pumps and stuff that are really underground just to pump it over there. We're not talking about a sewer plant here. But in the interim, when you're sitting there saying, okay, what are our options? The property behind Primavera was a piece of property that if you had to put a very small plant on to handle that much water, that's something that we could do. And so that was up for sale for $800,000. We offered $500,000, and Ed Kelly said fine. The town now owns that property. And the reason we bought the property is because we don't have to think about it. We have options, right? I also met with the DEP, the assistant commissioner, I know very well, David Warren, and I said, that piece of property over there, if I don't need it and don't want it, can I hand it to you and you will give me all the property around Croton Falls? The parking lots, behind Lumber Street, all of them. And it took them 3 months. They came back and said, yeah, we'd be happy to do that. They won't buy property, but they'll flip property. And so that's another option. The nice thing about that is, as Cynthia said, we paid them $56,000 in 2016 to rent it from them. We have to do all the snow removal and all the insurance and everything else, so we make a little money, not a huge amount. But that money we wouldn't have to spend anymore if we actually owned that. And the property over there is not costing anywhere near that, so it would actually be a positive cash flow back to us. At the same time, you're familiar with the fact that the B. Hawley Smith property was up for sale. He was getting rid of it. And it was kind of right in the middle of the Hamlet area. And if you saw it before, it didn't look very nice. And not that I was terribly concerned. I'm sure the planning board would have looked at it and said, you can or can't do this. But he had a grandfathered use, which was basically just put stuff all over the place. And I know the planning board would have probably figured it all out, but if I could say it looked like crap, it looked like crap. So the town board stepped in and bought that. And the reason is because it was adjacent. There's nothing better than contiguous property. It's adjacent to that little park that we have. Again, if I go back to Dino and Artie, it used to be a transmission shop. For those of you that have been here a long time, you know that. They contaminated the soil. It cost $1.1 million to clean the site. And the DEC paid 90% of that. The town probably paid about $140,000 over the years to redo that site. In 2018, they finally said, okay, you're done testing. We haven't found any contaminants. And I said, can we use it? And they said, well, they finally said yes. So we slapped the gazebo on it. Peter went out, and in fact, the Open Land Foundation bought the thing for us. A lot of the plantings, they paid for that. Or some Open Land Foundation. We put the gazebo on it, and we planted some stuff there because I didn't want them saying, oh, maybe you can't use it for certain things. So we've kind of been trying to protect the stuff and get to the point where, okay, we have to make some decisions. Like, we sell that property back to somebody else for development, but we own it right now. The Dino and Artie's property, we own that. That's going to be a little park. The area behind that, where when I say I mean the town board. I didn't buy it, or we didn't buy it because of the old depot. We bought it because it was right in the middle. It was adjacent to our property, looked like crap, and it wasn't something I wanted to see in the middle of the community. I thought we could do something better than that. We can always sell it. The other thing in the back of my mind was if I lose business septic systems, which you're right on the verge a lot of times, you may not be aware, I could always put a communal sewer system over in Dino and Artie's property and go across that lot if I had to. A septic system, not a sewer system. So again, it was let's protect this, and so now we own it, right? And that work that Cynthia was just mentioning, the sidewalks and stuff, you don't need it. Okay, over here. So this is 22. This is where the gazebo is. This is East Cross Street, and this is where the depot is in the back, right? The rest of Hamlet. This thing here, I got a $120,000 grant from CDBG grant, and we split it up into two pieces, phase 1 and phase 2, because the other part of the grant isn't coming for another 6 months. It's a grant from Assemblyman Burdick, and that's a $125,000 grant to redo that parking and fix it up, and so it looks nice. The building, you know, I almost wish sometimes the building wasn't there, but it's there, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with that. Maybe, well, we've had a bunch of different discussions on some things. The other thing that I've seen over the years is that everybody's been investing in the community. So if I went back and looked at it in 2011, a lot of the businesses were up for rent. You had the lumber store in there. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of the lumber property, but it was going to be an MTA parking lot, which we really don't need more cars in the center. We pushed them to look down in Purdy's, and then by the time they came back, we kind of talked to Eric. Is Eric here? Eric Wazirski. Anyway, we talked with the lumber folks and helped them. They found Eric, and Eric did a phenomenal job. You look at the lift trucks, Tom's been investing in the community. You look at the DePauli property, all the different properties, everybody's been investing in the homes and stuff. And so we wanted to kind of enhance that. The other thing that we've seen is that we have artists in town, right? Tom's a painter. And we have potters at the rail yards, and we have different folks, and you know, Mike Benelli, if you knew Mike just died last week, but phenomenal artist. And there's a bunch of other folks that we had that a little arts day there, and there were a bunch of people in the hill that were either singers, this or that, and the other. I was very impressed. And so we're trying to help the community from maybe become a little bit more known as an art. I can draw two straight lines if I have a ruler. Actually, I'm a little bit better than that. I can make a curvy line without a ruler, but I'm not an artist, right? But I know the value of having a community together that does those types of things. And so Brent Golisano, I blame Brent. If it goes wrong, it's Brent's fault. But Brent, at the beginning of the year, I had a call from Chris Pope about the schoolhouse theater. He says, is the town interested? And I said, we've overextended. I'd love to own it, but we're a bit overextended on some different properties because we have purchased all these other things to keep them in place. And Brent at one of our meetings said, hey, we really should look at this long-term for an arts-type center, a senior-type center. If you've been inside, it has some gorgeous space. And Bram's been running the schoolhouse theater there. I have no issues with them staying and stuff, right? This is something I think is a benefit to the community. And so the town is going to be closing on that sometime in November. We're not going to be using it right away. There's a lot of roof work, no insulation, things of that nature. Probably by next August, I'm thinking we'll be in good shape there. So we've been trying to put the pieces together, hoping we could have this discussion a year and a half ago, but we are where we are now. And, you know, after we bought how things changed real fast, we bought the B. Hawley Smith property, and I got a call from New York City, Affordable Action, whatever it was, and they wanted to put affordable housing there. They said, who owns that? And I said, we do. We're not selling it, right? So everything is we have pieces now. We can go to Heritage Hills. We can put something here. We can sell this property. We could even sell the property, the B. Hawley Smith property if we wanted to. But right now the town holds everything and we're controlling everything. And that's all part of this plan that we'd love you guys to figure out and put together. In terms of the sewers, my best guess is it's going to cost us $5 million. And part of that is because you have to dig a line up a road for 1 3/4 mile. The closest place for Heritage is Greenbrier. It's up the hill, Butlerville Hill over in Somers. And from there is an 8-inch sewer main down into the plant. So it'd be a fair amount of money. The county's already told us they have something called water quality improvement money from the DEP. I've been telling them for years I need $4 or $5 million, and they've been nodding. There's still some money sitting in the pot. There's grants open and stuff of that nature. I just got ARPA money that we can't spend on much but sewers and water systems, pretty much. Not too much more. I have $500,000 of that. And so what I don't want people to get upset about and concerned about is this going to kill me? Is the cost going to kill me? First of all, I'm not talking even about going up the hill. I'm talking about I need to protect the wells. As Cynthia said, there's something they're called gutty wells under the influence of groundwater. When you go into the bedrock around here, if you have your own well, you have uranium or radium in your well. It's below the MCL levels, the levels you're allowed to have, but it's there. In our water system, it was above. you pull large volumes of water out, and sooner or later the radiologicals go up. So I need to get the houses around the sewer system. I would, around the wells. I would love to have them not put sewer into a septic tank right next to the well, not next to our wells, because they're 42 feet deep. They're in sand and gravel. Not a good thing if they ever get contaminated, because we'd be going crazy trying to find a spot. We're looking at others right now, but suffice to say, there's some homes that I would like to get on sewer. And then the business district needs to be on sewer. It really does for its long-term, its long-term benefit. So the town board asked the planning board to please kind of pull all this stuff together. The town board, I got to tell you, is of one mind right now. We're focused on Croton Falls. There's a lot of stuff we're going to do. I put something out in 2019 that said 2025. This is the 2025 plan. And I sent it in to get a $10 million grant. They told me there's no way you're getting the grant, but there's a benefit in putting this together. Peace Lake, Croton Falls, then you got to go down and do some stuff in Curtis. So what I need from you folks is, this is good, we like this, we want it walkable, we think sewer's up the hill, you may want to think about that, you may not want to do that at all, but those are the types of things I need, and that's why everybody's come here. And I didn't think we got this many people here. I'm quite impressed, so I want to thank everybody. And again, my goal is to make Croton Falls as viable as it can be, a wonderful place. Not that it isn't, but you can always improve it, right? So that's the town board's goal. When I say me, I'm talking about the town board, right? So I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to turn it back over to Cynthia. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Here is Gary. Gary's going to be our microphone cat. So this is the time for us to start listening to you. We got several comments already. I want to quickly mention the people who've already written or called or stopped me on the street, and it might get your thinking going. If I can hold it together here. Okay. Mrs. Milani's in Croton Falls. She wants to know about the benefits of the sewer, but more importantly, how can I get home delivery of mayo? That's a biggie. Sarah Lyons Davis, she's been here for quite a while in the Sun Valley Heights area. She loves walking down to the park if she could on the sides of the road. Are there any thoughts about sidewalks going in, especially with the blind curves? They love the beautiful park. A farmer's market there might be amazing. But what can you do to make the walk to the park safer? John Jacobson said that he's all for upgrading the current water system, filtering it, as water purity is not as good as it should be. It's very hard on appliances and corrosive pipes, etc. He's also in favor of a sewer system for Croton Falls. He has a house on Peach Lake, so he knows the benefits of that directly. Sandra Tika stopped me on the street. She's from my neighborhood in Yanksville. She also asked about home postal delivery. I got a phone call from Ken Lipman, a businessman. He bought the old firehouse. He's in favor of a sewer district for their area. Trish Gallagher called. She lives on that section of Route 22 that's right across from the Weedy Wells that Warren talked about. That's the section of water line that was never done. If they ever get around to doing it, it's a good time to talk about putting a sidewalk in. And those things go hand in hand. You're going to be digging underground, whether you're going to be putting in a new septic line or a new water line. Think about what you want going back on top. If there's an opportunity for a sidewalk, can you plan those things together? It might save a lot of money in the long run, and with getting grant money, it might be beneficial. She talked about how people do walk on her side of the road because it's difficult to cross 22, and they might need a crosswalk in that area. She also pointed out the difficulty of that intersection, Mahopac Avenue coming into 22. Morning commuters, you could watch them. There's a stop sign there. They just, as much as they can, just whip through. And like me, if you're coming up over the hill, I'm used to it, keep my eye out for them, but a stranger might not be, so she's fearful that there could be more accidents there. And then if you go further up 22, where 202 and 22 come in, she says there's a lot of bad accidents there. We know that, they've improved that, they still haven't gotten it right. There's still a few people who don't stop at the stop sign, people who continue to take left-hand turns when they shouldn't, and people just driving too fast. and she wanted to know if that should be considered as a T intersection. Daniel Jervis wrote in. She and her husband Brett are up near the Schoolhouse Theater. They are thrilled that the town purchased the Schoolhouse Theater. She thinks it has wonderful opportunity. Let's see, this is a long book. She often talks about walking the farmers market, the same issues about a walkable community, sidewalks, and how to get to the park, and mail service. Another one for mail service. Bob DeRoss, who couldn't be with us tonight, he's certainly in favor of the sewer district, and he apologized for not being here to talk to us. Libby Parker. Libby helped put together that Arts in the Park event. She had an incredible idea. That little park, we don't know how active it could be or passive it might be. She said, what if we asked artists to put sculptures there that children could climb on? So rather than just putting in a swing set with a slide, maybe we could be more creative with something for children, and it would kind of promote the idea of bringing more arts to the center. So she says she's observed the pollinator garden there. It's absolutely wonderful. And she's observed people there with their children, and she loves that little park, obviously, and she's coming up with some great ideas for all of you to think about as it gets improved. And then last night we got an email from another neighbor in my neighborhood explaining how difficult it is to get packages delivered to people who are dealing with a street address, a post office box, our street's not being up on GPS, and how do we resolve this? Maybe it's just, once again, home delivery of mail might resolve that. So as a quick answer on the home delivery of mail, I think there is a solution. Well, it takes a petition to the North Center Post Office by the neighborhood to have that happen. And you have to be a certain distance from the last home delivery. So when I first moved in town, everybody in Sunset, where Joe Gordon is, they all had to drive into Croton Falls and pick up their mail. They were one of the first ones to petition. They got it. Then Sun Valley did the same thing. As you come around the corner, and this is what's important, as you come around the corner, you get this neighborhood now has the home delivery. Well, it's up to you guys over here. If you petition and get the home delivery, and I'm talking, the Harvey, Avery, Maple Avenue area, then that opens it up for the Youngsville area to petition and get home delivery of mail. Years ago, I pulled out all the paperwork. I know I had talked to Lisa Moore, who tried to do it a few years ago. I don't know why it didn't happen, but I think there's another active group of people trying to do that now. Any help they might need, we can certainly figure out the right way to do it. At one point, I think Lisa was told because of dead-end streets, they're not going to do it. And I went over to the North Center Post Office and said, I'm not buying it. I mean, there's dead-end streets. My neighborhood is all dead-end streets. So it's not something I knew my neighbors wanted to hear. And I was told by the North Center Post Office that they would figure out how to make it work. So I encourage, if you are doing it in the Harvey Birch neighborhood, please let me know, because I don't want to duplicate effort, and I can share that information with the people in my neighborhood that may be interested. So that's some of the things that people already wrote in about. We'd love to hear from you today. If you grab the microphone and tell us, that's great. If you don't want to speak in the microphone, Ed is going to walk around with cards, and you can write it down, and I'll read it for it. Or if you don't know today what you want, and you want to think about it some more, you can take a card, you can drop it in the box when you leave, or you can, there's envelopes there, return address, our return address on it. Take it home, think about it. Keep the line of communication open. We have email, we have telephones, numbers that are on the letters that I sent out. So let's get started. Who has anything on their mind? Ask a question.